Morning, guys. Morning. Oh, wow. See, you can tell by third period, you guys are a little more awake. I had you guys bring out 3 sheets of loose leaf when you first came in. Let's go ahead and get started on that part. A lot of what we're going to do today is going to be about self-reflection. So I want to make sure that when you're writing down things that I'm going to instruct you on, that you are writing them down for you. This is not something that is a partner activity. This really isn't something where your neighbor should be counseling you on yourself, because you're writing about yourself. So the first thing I want you to do, take 1 sheet of loose leaf. You can write as big as you want to on the top or bottom, and write down 1 to 2 things that you are really good at. Something that when someone looked at you, they said, you know what, if I need so-and-so done, I'm looking at this person. Or, you know what, this person makes me feel really good at this particular point in time. So choose 1 to 2 things that you feel like are you at your best self. Write them down on that sheet of paper. I'm going to give you guys about 45 seconds to a minute for this. Once you write those 1 or 2 things down, go ahead and fold that sheet of paper in half. Has everybody had their 1 to 2 things? All right, second sheet of paper. Same idea, write top, bottom as large as you want. But I want you to focus on 1 or 2 things that you can work on, something that you do not have as much confidence in yourself in, something that if you were to look at yourself and say, I really need to work on this, or I wish I was better at this, or I wish I was more like so-and-so in this area, that you have those things. So again, for yourself, choose those 1 or 2 things, write them down, fold the sheet of paper in half, set it off to the side of your desk. All right, so if you guys will allow me, I would like to take a little bit of time to share my story. I will go ahead and warn you at the get-go. I am not, like, surprisingly some exciting, mysterious person. I don't have random millions. I haven't done anything to change the world in a very noteworthy way. I'm a guy, 33, originally from Detroit, Michigan. Been in Florida for about 10 years now. I have a wife, an infant daughter. I work for admissions at University of South Florida, Sarasota, Manatee. And I just kind of live life just like you guys are going to do for the most part. So going back to the beginning of that story, I grew up in inner city Detroit. Spent 14 years in the city proper, in a time where it was kind of getting towards the end of the downward spiral that marked the city for many years before it started its current renaissance. A lot of people had left the city. The automotive industry had kind of hit a downward turn due to a lot of historical things that took place. There was a lot of separation, racial separation within the city, and people had started to move to the suburbs if they could afford it, and those who could not afford it were left in the city. The city started to have issues with crime, started to have issues with the downward economy, and people started to get desperate. And this became kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy as you went on through the generations. So as I come to this place, I get to a place now where I live in sort of a duality. I was lucky enough that my parents had good jobs and they made the choice for me that we're going to send our son to a private school because the school system is so bad in the city. We want to give him a shot to be able to do something solid and good with his life. And they made that investment in me along with my godparents and other people in my family. And so every day I would go off to this private school just outside of the city in the suburbs, and I would see people that were making good choices. I would see people that were investing in themselves, that were making the right decision day in and day out to set themselves up for success. And I remember the first day I went to second grade, I went to a school called St. Veronica's, and I wasn't there for this, but my parents had told me that basically the one concern they had, they saw that I was a good student, they saw that I had a good family base, but they did know that statistically, students that came from the inner city didn't last well in that school. They didn't do well academically, and usually after a year or two they were dismissed. So they had shared this with my parents and they took note of it, but they said, you know what, he's happy here, we want him to come here, and I did. And I went on to do great in that school, and I went on to make a lot of friends that I still have today, and I did well academically, and I went on to high school, and I said, my parents again made that investment. They said, you know what, at this point they had now moved to the suburbs, after my freshman year actually, but they said, you know what, he's happy there, he's doing well there, let's keep him there in high school. And my dad said, if you do well, you can stay. If you do badly, we'll send you to the school up the road. Now you're by a decent school, you'll be okay. But I said, I want to stay. And when I stayed, I went on to become the drum major for 2 years in the band. I went on to be in several theatrical presentations. I was the captain of a sports team. And I had a lot of honors that when it came time to go to college, I was in a good place. And I went on to Grand Valley State University in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I went there as a journalism major. And to be honest with you, I have no idea why. I was on the school newspaper for a little bit in high school. I enjoyed it. I said, I'm going to keep doing this. And I did well. I had a lot of wins. I won in grade school. I had won and did well in high school. And I did really well in college for my first 3 years. I went all the way through. I had joined a fraternity. I was in marching band. I was in residence halls council. But most notably on what I was known for around campus was being on the newspaper. I went from a staff writer to news editor to an assistant editor on the newspaper, and it really became a part of who I was. So when I talked to faculty and administration and other student leaders, they knew, yeah, he's the guy that's on the newspaper. And then all of a sudden, that came to an end. I had a dispute with my managing editor and with some administration, and basically, I got fired from the newspaper. When something like that happens and you spend years investing in who you are and it comes to an end, I promise you, you would get thrown for a loop. And I was. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who I was exactly. I had good friends, though, who told me, you know what? You're my best friend. You're the guy that makes me laugh. You're the kind of guy who got me through a breakup with my girlfriend. And that's good enough. And I said, okay. And I started to put myself back together. So as I got into my senior year, I really had to do a self-evaluation and say, what do I love about the university experience? And to be honest with you, it wasn't going to class. I mean, I did well enough in my classes. I passed my classes. But when I look back at college, I remember going to my fraternity meetings and going on canned food drives and going to championship games for the football team as a band member, and all these other things that weren't in the classroom. And finally, I went up to a guy by the name of Sam Centeus, and I said, he was an advisor in Greek life. I said, Sam, how do I do what you do? And he said, well, there's a lot of ways you can do it, but the main way you're going to do it is to go to grad school, get your master's in college student affairs or higher ed administration. Now, in all fairness, how many of you guys grow up saying, I want to be a college student affairs administrator? Probably nobody. That's not something you do when you're in third grade or even in high school. So I said, okay, I think I want to do that. How do I do it? And he says, well, you got to find a master's program. Now the problem is, I'm in my senior year. Usually people who are looking at master's programs are starting this halfway through their junior year, and I was behind the 8 ball. So when it all kind of worked out and I really started looking at things, I didn't really have enough time to get into a grad program that I would have felt confident in. So I said, I'm going to put this on hold, but I am going to finish the degree that I'm in because I'm so far along and you don't need to necessarily have a certain bachelor's degree to go into the master's degree. So I did, and I graduated, and I fell into the trap that many people do in college of, oh, I graduated, but I'm supposed to get a job. And I wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do in this meantime, in this gap year I kind of gave myself unintentionally. But I had a great friend call me up, and they said, hey, we're doing this camp. And we have about 4 spots that just opened up, and I think you'd be a great fit for it. Why don't you come out and see about doing it? I'll put in a good word for you, and we'll go from there. So one of the first things I want you guys to keep in mind is adjustments. a lot of confidence comes down to be able to making adjustments on the fly. And that's what I had to do. So I take this leap, I go out and I do this camp for about 6 weeks in north central Louisiana, in a place called West Monroe, Louisiana, best known for this giant paper mill in town. If you are ever in a town with a paper mill, leave. It smells atrocious. I promise you, you don't want to be there. But it was a great experience. And it really had me start looking at some different opportunities that I could do. And it reaffirmed that I love being around students. I love educating students. And I loved kind of that performance side of it. So I go ahead and I take this job in California at a boarding school. And I have about 50 boys around me that don't look like me, coming from Korea and mainland China and Taiwan primarily. And I do that job for a year and a half, and I love it. I love all parts of it. And then, boom, budget cuts. My job gets cut. By the way, since you're at a boarding school, that also means my housing gets cut, my food gets cut. So essentially, I'm potentially homeless or heading back home with my tail between my legs. And I put in a call to a buddy of mine living in Florida and say, hey, do you mind if I come down there, just stay on your couch a little bit, get started again? He said, yeah, that's not a problem. So I come here and I stay there. I have a couple other odd jobs that don't work out for me. But then I land at Nova Southeastern University in Tampa, a branch campus there, doing college student affairs. So now I'm closer to what I want to do, and they're going to pay for my grad school. Great. I can finally go back and do that grad school I thought about. And I go through and I do that and I get my master's degree. I find a great girl. We've been going out for a while. And then boom, get laid off from that job. I say, oh man. At the same time I get laid off, the relationship stops working out. Jeez. Don't have a job. Don't have my lady anymore. Kind of sitting around my apartment. The only good things I had was I had gotten really good at Call of Duty, and I gotten really good at some other things. But to fast forward the story, I end up at another university doing admissions, and then I do well at that for 3-4 years. I move into the place where I'm at now. I find another wonderful woman. I marry her, have a beautiful daughter, and I'm here now. So I say all these things because what I want to do is I want to impart in you that there are going to be trials and tribulations in life that come up, and you just got to kind of fight through and maneuver around them and keep your confidence high. At any moment, I could have let my confidence crash, but I didn't. So that being said, I want to focus in on one part that Coach had brought up, and it was catch them while they're good. Catch you guys while you're at your best. So I have some different words on the sheet that you can kind of look at while you're doing this last part of the activity. And what I want you to do is I want you to draft that self-affirmation letter that he talked about for yourself. I want you to think about, when are you at your best? When are you helping other people be at their best? When do you feel the best about yourself? And I want the letter to sound something like, dear me, I know times are hard right now, but remember, you're awesome at this. And go ahead and just write down some of those times that you are at your best. Sometimes you feel really great about yourself. Sometimes that you're making the best impact on the world on that sheet. And then I'm not going to ask you to share this. I don't want you to share it with your neighbor. This is for you. This is for you to put in your quiet place that you can go back and reflect on it. So go ahead and get started on that right now. Now again, on the sheet I handed out for you guys are just some different words to help you kind of reflect on some of the positive character traits that may be in yourself, but I don't want you necessarily just choosing the traits. I want you choosing just good moments, things that you accomplished.
We writing things that we should accomplish or what we can do?
Things that you currently can do, things that you have accomplished, things that you're really good at. So for me, for instance, I've counseled hundreds of students to be able to go to a university that they may not have always went to. I'm currently in the midst of raising a wonderful, funny, goofy daughter who's hopefully will be able to do a lot of great things in the world. I've helped a lot of friends through some hard times. So these are things I would like put for me, but whatever it is for you.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so go ahead, finish wrapping up that letter. to yourself. Now, this is an open dynamic letter. What I mean by that is, as you accomplish things, add them to it, Maybe things that you always want to remember those things, but as you go through life, you're going to continue to accomplish new things. They don't always have to be big. They just have to be big for you. I want to talk about 2 more quick things as we wrap up. We have another few minutes. 1, as you go through high school, as you go through life, to be quite honest, really, 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 always take some time to take stock of who is in your circle, who is in your entourage, because there's always going to be 1 or 2 great friends. But there's always also going to be 1 or 2 hanger-oners, 1 or 2 people who just, build themselves up by tearing other people down. And if you want an anecdotal evidence of this, look at anybody as they get older. Look at your parents. Look at your grandparents. Most of them have 1 or 2 good friends. It's that person that you say, oh, Aunt so-and-so, who isn't actually your aunt but is always around. And then they may have some friends from church or their quilting circle or bingo night or whatever they do. And then they have a lot of acquaintances and people from work. But the good friends, there's only a few. And that's because those are the ones that build you up. Those are the ones that have been there for you through the down times. Those are the ones that when the relationship didn't work out, they didn't say, oh, you should have saw it coming. He was no good. That she didn't care about you. She was looking at your boy anyway, whatever. No, they looked at you and they said, you know what? There's something better out there for you. They're the ones that when you got cut from a team, they weren't like, man, you can't hoop anyway, man. I'm trying to tell you. No, they said, you know what? That's all right. We're going to find something better for you. They're the ones that when you were having that breakdown, you knew you could call them because they were going to make you feel better about yourself and they're going to help you through that storm. So take stock, and it's all right that the other people are around, but they have their place. And there's other people that have a place closer to your heart and closer to your confidence that are only going to help strengthen your confidence. So make sure you're taking stock of that. Make sure that you have those 1 or 2 people. And make sure that, even more important, that you're that person for somebody else. And if you're around someone that you can't stand or you feel like you need to bring down, then maybe you need to remove yourself from their group as well to help them be the best them that they can be. So I did want to touch on that. But last, I want you guys to go ahead. Now we have 3 folded sheets of paper on your desk. I want you to take the one with your positives, the things that you have the most confidence in. I want you to set that one aside and hold on to it. I want you to take your letter to yourself. Think about where you want to hang that at. And this isn't something that, you don't necessarily want on the door of your locker. Maybe it's in the back of your locker. Maybe it's on your mirror. Maybe it's, in the tree fort that you don't admit that you go to every once in a while to get away from it all, whatever. But it's a place for you, your inner sanctum, that you can go to when you need to read that letter to yourself and give yourself some positive self-talk, as Dr. Joseph referred to. And then now the only thing you have left is the thing you want to work on, the negative. Now, in the TED Talk, one of the things I love to talk about is catch them when they're good. Catch you when you're at your best. And that's something that I really try to internalize for myself, and I encourage you to do as well. So what I want you to do is take the one with your negatives and one with the things you want to work on, rip it up. Rip it up. And we're going to toss it out. Yeah, the bad one. Thank you. Thank you. We're tossing out the bad one. Thank you. All right. All right. So, and the reason why I wanted you guys to go ahead and get rid of the bad one is simply this. there are always things that you're going to want to work on. There are always things that you can be better at. But those don't define who you are. Those are not the things that say, when you look at the end of your life, when someone else really looks at you, cares about you, they don't sit there and say, man, if they only spoke out a little louder, they were better at math, they were better at their sport. If they, weren't as sarcastic. No, they're going to look at those good moments. They're going to look at those things that you were at your best self, the things where you were changing the world for the positive, and say, you know what? I remember when they helped me out. I remember when I was feeling down, they looked at me. And that's what I want you guys to do for yourself. You guys have 3 more years of high school. I guarantee you, whether it's a class, whether it's a person, whether it's just life in general and circumstances, you're going to have times where you feel down. You need to be able to focus on the positives. Yeah, you're going to want to have people around that helps you work on the things that you need to work on, and you're going to want to make sure that you're aware of them, but don't focus on them. Focus on the ways that you can make the best impact on the world. And just kind of stay true to that Northern Star as you go through life, and you will be fine. So thank you guys so much for coming out, for listening. Obviously by coming out, I mean coming to class, but thank you so much for listening, for participating. Do you guys have any other questions for me before we wrap up today? All right. Have a good one, guys.